It seems to me that perhaps are we maybe just collecting more data than necessary?
Yeah, I think we are, and I think we're not doing a good job of cleaning up after ourselves. Okay. The third thing, which may be I think may be important, is that because of this price erosion for the last 50 years, we've capitalized our equipment over 3 to 5 years because it's cheaper to buy new than maintain old. But if that price erosion has slowed down, then maybe we need to keep the media longer, 5 to 7 years, for instance, and capitalize it over 5 to 7 years. But that's a long time in terms of other technologies like thin provisioning, dynamic tiering, and things like that. So another approach that we've taken is to separate the control unit or the intelligence from the media. Okay, that way you could capitalize the media over a longer period of time, but keep refreshing the intelligence on a regular basis. And that's what we call virtualization. That's what essentially we do with virtualization. So virtualization, again, can help to keep a sustainable budget while the data demand is increasing and while the prices are not as eroding as we've seen in the past.
Storage, virtualization seemed to take off in the storage market before it did in the server market. Did storage kind of lead that virtualization drive?
Well, actually, yes, storage virtualization. It depends, how you define it. Mainframes were doing virtualization many years ago, but storage virtualization, we introduced it in 2004. Okay, but there was a lot of confusion around what is storage virtualization. Whether you're doing an appliance or you're doing a control unit, and so forth. And the people who do it in appliances have to remap the volumes into virtual extents, and they have a mapping table. And so it appeared to be too difficult to do. Server virtualization really, with the introduction by VMware especially, took off like wildfire because it was very easy to virtualize servers. Going back, we used to try to consolidate applications. We had all these applications, but we couldn't consolidate them because they always had hooks into the operating system. VMware came along and said, okay, you don't have to unhook the applications from the operating system, just stack it up. And so that's why we saw this tremendous move towards server virtualization. And it was on an x86 platform, which is very, very low cost. In storage, what we do is we don't require people to remap their LUNs. That's what most virtualization techniques do.
And LUNs are just the
volumes,
logical
representation of the volume. So maybe I'm getting a little bit digressing some, but server virtualization took off like wildfire, and really is starting to now drive storage virtualization. Because as you create these virtual machines, you have to have virtual disks that go with it. So now we're seeing a greater demand for our technology. For a while it was, not many people were virtualizing. And because they really didn't understand what it could provide. But now that we see the effects of server virtualization, it is driving more storage virtualization. And to us, storage virtualization is really separating the control unit from the media so that you can have other people's storage, put the control unit on top and enhance them with all the latest functionality while you're capitalizing it over the longer period of time.
It seems to me that in 2004, storage virtualization was about abstraction for the sake of the user, whereas I guess now with more of a more virtualized server environment, does that mean that storage virtualization is really on behalf of the machine as opposed to the user?
It's both, The way we introduced storage virtualization, it was really to reduce the operational cost. Yes, it helps you consolidate the hardware, but really it makes it easier to manage the storage, because actually the biggest cost in the total cost of storage is the operational cost. That's been increasing while the hardware costs have been relatively flat up until now. So virtualization was to help users make more efficient use of their storage, reduce the operational cost. That has been our view all along. However, now with server virtualization, this also helps and actually it even helps the server virtualization become more efficient. It may sound funny, but what the VMware and others are doing is they're finding that they have to unload a lot of their storage functions down into the storage system. So we can handle that. So what we do is we create more intelligent storage systems that can, say, offload the formatting of the virtual disk or do the vMotion for them on their behalf.
When will we see the last spinning hard drive?
You know, that's a hard question to answer because there's so many factors going on here. You know, what's happening in the solid-state market, what's happening in these new technologies that aren't really here yet in terms of spinning disk, hard disk. Yeah, I may be wrong. They may be very successful and very low cost to manufacture. And so maybe they will continue to be there for some time. But I think we're approaching the end of mechanical recording, magnetic recording, or some other phase change or whatever type of recording, but on some sort of mechanical media. I think that we're coming to the end, and it's within the next 10 years or so.
Yoshida, thank you so much for taking the time.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Right.